right. Well, we have a lot to talk about today. Today is August the 5th, 2025, and we are looking at Bitcoin right now on the daily. All right, so let's jump into how I'm looking at this price action and why I'm a little bit concerned here about the price action we're getting here for Bitcoin as we're topping out. So, a few things I want to mention today. I think you're going to get a lot of value from this price action and give you just to give you a little bit of a better understanding, better grasp of the technicals and what traders are really looking at for Bitcoin right now. So right now on the daily, I want to point out we have not been daily oversold. So when you see these blue bars come across, this is the RSI bars. So this will send horizontal lines across when the time frame you're looking at is oversold and overbought. So overbought will send an orange line across, and then when it comes back into comes out of overbought, we'll get the dark orange line. So same thing with oversold. Bitcoin was first daily oversold right here. You see the green arrow referencing a buying opportunity. And as we come back in through the overbought territory, we get the sort of this dotted blue line here. So that creates a very solid base of support. You see we kind of dropped below it, came back above it, and then we were off to the races here back on this bull market. We got above this orange resistance, which was bought way over here. So here we came oversold. This was the first time we were oversold in 2025, and this happened in February. Since then, we have not been oversold on the daily. And that is one thing that is very, very alarming to me. I think ultimately we will need to put in some new lows here for Bitcoin and show a solid, oversold daily chart, and we have not got that yet. I'm going to show you the RSI bands afterwards so we can project, well, what price would the daily oversold be today? So I'm going to show you that right here. So if we pull on the RSI bands, now you can really see, and I'll get rid of the RSI bars, but you can see we've been overbought here, we were overbought here, and we were overbought here on the daily, right? Sending these little sell signals to me so that I can, digest the data, right? So far it's been pretty accurate. When you get overbought, you can see there was some sell pressure here. We got overbought, and now there's some sell pressure here. So I'll get rid of the RSI bands or RSI bars, sorry, and now we'll focus on the RSI bands. So again, this is the same thing. This is the RSI now, but broken out into the price action. So anytime we get up into this top band, that's overbought. Anytime we get into this bottom band, that would be daily oversold. So we can see the daily oversold coming in at 106,000. You can also see I've got the 100K mark, very, obvious psych level in the market, the 100K mark. So that's always going to be sort of a gravitational pull towards that level. So I always want to keep that in mind. You can see the last time we tested it was right here around June 22nd, where we were selling off. We got one day, boom, pushed off the 100K level, and then we pumped up to 120. But ultimately, it pushed us out into the very, very overbought level on the daily. And since then, we've been coming down. And you can see now the gray line is the 50% level on the RSI. So you can see bulls were trying to hold on to that 50% control level. You can see these little dotted orange lines would be the 60% level on the RSI, and the dotted green lines would be the 40%. So we've got 20, 40, 50, 60, and 80. So anytime Bitcoin's daily RSI is above 80 is always a good time to sell or just, short, or what I mean, take some sizing off of your Bitcoin position. But what I'm seeing right now is, very interesting. We came off that 60% resistance, right? You see 1-2 days down into the 40. So bears really won this battle. They were able to hold that 60% bear control, and now we came down into the 40 and back up to 50. So you can already see today we're getting rejected off of this 50% bear control. Now you can see the RSI kind of turning over, sloping downwards, and over the weekend we kind of rallied back up to it, and now we're getting a very hard resistance off of that, and we're trying to hold on now to this 40% level. But ultimately, guys, I think Bitcoin will need to come into some oversold levels on the daily RSI. So something that I'm keeping in mind for sure. easily 107. And then once we get down into this 107, I think we're going to want to have that 100K retest just because of how significant that is as a psych level. So I'm watching this 107. It also, coincides with all of this previous market structure here. So that, would be another reason why this price wants to get pulled down. We know there's a lot of volume here. If we take a volume profile, we will see that there's a very big bar of volume traded right here at around 107. So, I think the Bears are definitely in control at this point. We're below the 50% RSI level, and I think they're really looking for a juicy, uh, you know, downside move towards 107K just based on this daily chart. Let's jump into the 4 hour. Actually, one more thing, guys, I really want to show you is just some technicals just in terms of drawing, because I don't really see too many people talking about this. This is a very, very significant trend line, in my opinion, because it's very obvious. We can take this bottom from 75K and we could touch it here off that 100K support. And when we extend this out, it's looking like we're actually breaking this trend line. Let's zoom in now. So you can see I've anchored the beginning here to the close. Let's see. So we start off right there. We can even be conservative, right, and take that wick for the trend line. And you can see we're really flirting with the trend line break, which would really signal downside. In my opinion, if we break this trend line, we're going to want to come back down into 100K. So that's two reasons why I think there's a 100K play, that could be happening soon. And then the other thing is, once that trend line breaks, we know that there is a seriously important trend line, coming from, whether you want to take it from the 20K level or just right here around 30K. We can extend this out, touch these points here, and you'll see that it also coincides at this point here, and we extend this across. And if this trend line breaks, look out, because this actually could be the beginning of the end of the bull market cycle. This trend line must hold. I've been in this market since 2016, and I know that when these massive trend lines break, that is a very big signal to the market that the trend is changing. Bears are really looking for this opportunity for another bear market cycle for Bitcoin. It's very lucrative if you can time the charts right. So that's in the back of my mind. We're still, I still think that this could recover and turn bullish in Q3, but you know what I'm saying? I think we need to have some oversold levels and really test the strength of this bull market one more time and get a chance at some daily overbought. But really, really critical trend line. I'll zoom in on this, and as we drill into the 4 hour chart, you'll get an even better indication of what I'm looking at. So let's jump into the 4 hour, and what I want to do is I want to put these RSI bands back on, and I want to just show you how Bitcoin's been trading within these bands, because it's pretty cool to see. As we were chopping sideways, again, we were between the 60% and the 40%, right? Bull and bear control. You can see we've just been chopping around 60%, 40%, 60%, 40%, right? And we were just chopping around, not a whole lot of volatility. Finally, we break down to the downside. We get this 4 hour oversold, 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 and then we finally pushed off 112K back up. But look at where we came into this price action. You can see the gray line coming through. What is that? The 50% control level. So you can see we popped up out of the oversold position, back up to the 50. We even wicked up into the 60 and then back down. So it's very difficult to close this 4 hour candle above the 50%. That was a very good indication that, the bear control is still intact. And also this move here off the bottom, very low volume. Just the weekend traders, right? Just taking it up, just getting indicators back into alignment. But very, very strong bearish response off this 50% control. And we know that the 4 hour oversold now is coming around here at around 110K, which we have not tested yet. We kind of got held up here at 112. This is also a gap close on the, Bitcoin futures chart. So everyone wanted to see that gap close. I think ultimately the bears that were closing that gap just kind of took a little bit of profit here over the weekend, and now they're back, they're back at their computers, and they're seeing the TA starting to develop even further for this bear market push. So there you go. Very, very heavy resistance to get above. We're going to need to really clear this 60% level and then hold on to the 50 and then rally back if we're going to rally back, in this move. there's also going to be a very steep trend line here, guys, that we have to break out of in order to get up back towards 120K. So, the chart is looking very bearish. It makes sense. We've been calling this downside move to 110 for a couple of weeks now as we've been chopping up here. So not surprising, right? But it's still pretty significant when these moves start to happen, because that up here there was a lot of euphoria. There was some altcoins breaking out. I saw, on X, you do get the sense that this was a very euphoric phase in Bitcoin at around 120K, and that's exactly when, the market turns around and kind of gives these euphoric, traders and hopium people a bit of a reality check. So that's how I'm looking at the 4 hour. And the other thing, guys, on the 4 hour are these these RSI bands. You can see these have been very, very reliable. Last time we got a very oversold 4 hour was right here, around June 22nd, around the 100K mark. So see the blue oversold bars coming in, a very good buying opportunity. We saw our indicator give us that signal to buy, and ever since it's been a very good buying opportunity. But right as around here where we got up and we started seeing these red sell signals and these orange resistance lines coming across, we can see that these have been very critical sell levels and resistance levels, and finally it broke down. So ultimately, I think what's going to give us the support for the bull market is to really get some oversold levels, get some blue support bars coming in, which we have not seen yet. So it hasn't really been significantly oversold right now. We know it's been hovering around this 80% level, but for these bars to trigger, I have a pretty high threshold, right? So my inputs right now, the overbought would be 75% and oversold would be 25%. So you can see the bands are coming into the 30%, 30%, 30% levels, but we haven't really got that 25% really oversold level like we have on the overbought. So ultimately, I do think we probably will want to come lower, and we're going to have to put in some support bars like we've seen back here at a higher high. And that's going to give the bulls something to latch onto and something to kind of, dig their heels into and use as support if we want to push back up. Even going into the 1 hour, you can see, let's get rid of these bands. You can see the bands already on the 1 hour are kind of oversold, right? You can see right here we're getting into a little bit of an oversold level, right? So we're getting a bit of support on this 1 hour. But you remember, as you zoom in lower and lower into the time frames, these indicators, they become a little bit less reliable. But the 1 hour bands is kind of interesting to see. It's already oversold. The 1 hour bands are kind of tightening up. But what I really want to see for this Bitcoin chart, again, we did see, look at this. So on the 1 hour, right? This was the last time we got really 1 hour oversold. So below 25% gave us a really solid trade right on the 1 hour short term trade. We see the green arrow coming in, signaling a buying opportunity, pushed us back up, and we just could not get above this 118K resistance. You can see another support trigger right there off that level. But you can see once we got below it, it was really, really hard to get back out of this little pocket, and we kind of just broke down and we were able to sell off deep into 112. And look at that, we rallied right back up, and now this previous support 1-2 is going to be resistance. So we saw that right here over the weekend, resistance down, one last chance. And if you zoom in on this 1 hour, it's really, really critical. Look at this. We know these traders were putting their sell orders right there. Previous support comes resistance. It's just the most classic technical bit of knowledge that you can have is, when we break below support, it becomes resistance. So once, twice, and then here comes the sell-off. So now what we really need to see is building in another base of support. So we need to see another oversold on the 1 hour. We know that these lows right here are very critical as well. We cannot let this price come down below the 1 hour base of support here. But really, really critical resistance happening right here on the 1 hour chart as well, as we can see. So you know what I'm saying? I really just think this bear market is just getting started. Very bearish price action. If we were to inverse this chart and flip this type of structure, it would look extremely bullish, right? Everybody would be saying that we're coiling up for a big push higher, and that's exactly what we saw: lower low, lower low, lower low, lower low, and so saw a big push lower. And now, since they got the push, now we're just waiting for retracements to keep shorting, right? So that's going to be this bear market until we can get a solid base of support and start looking like we can build up enough momentum to really get out of this downtrend. Look at this serious downtrend, and now we have horizontal resistance. So I guess the point of this video is just to caution, just to have a little bit of caution out there. I know everyone believes that the bull market is still on and targets around 250K. I've seen that from many reputable analysts in the market, but I've learned to trust my indicators over the years. And when something's really this obvious, it's hard for me to kind of ignore it. And so I wanted to bring that to your attention. I'm very cautious about adding to your position right now in Bitcoin, and would advise, even though this is not financial advice, just for education, um, especially if you're in profits, right? I would think that maybe starting to sell tiny little bits just so you can get in a bit of a sell mindset would be wise, because even if this does break out and go higher and we continue the bull run in 2025, the more time we spend down here, um, like the lower the next high is going to be, because if we really want to get up to 200 and 250K, it's going to take time to do that. And I think everybody in the market knows that 2026 is probably going to be a bear market, just based on cyclical analysis and also based on the happening cycles in Bitcoin. So everyone wants to get out towards Q3 and Q4, and that creates a bit of a crowded selling market. And I think now's the time to get a bit of ahead of that cycle and start thinking about unwinding some positions and de-risking a little bit. Because once this starts to come down, it could get really aggressive. And it happens so fast in these bear markets that you'll be looking back and say, well, why didn't I sell, right? Because I was looking at this, every indicator was flashing. We know even on the weekly, guys, we had a lot of, right, we had this overbought, right? We had overbought up here, we pushed up higher. We know volume is just not coming in right now. Volume is declining, and everything's kind of painting towards this picture that bulls are a little bit exhausted, especially since we've seen the alt market pump. The alt market pumping is usually a sign of Bitcoin bull market kind of exhausting, right? We're not getting the returns that we once saw or that we were expecting in Bitcoin. So now we're looking to take a little bit more risk and move Bitcoin into some altcoins and try to get more Bitcoin that way, right? Enhance returns. And when I get that feeling of, oh, everyone's moving their money into altcoins now, it also triggers a little bit of caution, from my psychological perspective. And I don't want to, get too bearish. We still have a very intact trend right here, 1, 2, 3. But you know what I'm saying? We're getting close. If we come down, we're going to be testing this trend line, and then that 100K level is going to be huge, right? If we come below it and that 100K starts to become resistance, you can just see the panic that's going to set in this market. All right. So I know that's a bit of a bearish outlook for today's video. But it is what it is, guys. So that's going to do it for today's update. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.